So the lady that I made the hair comment about,
Hmm.
I know she spoke a little bit about her reactions to the aftermath, and she cleared up some things on her
Okay.
videos. Um, and what was interesting was she didn't feel as if the comment was actually made towards her and that it had anything to really do with her. She thought that that comment actually was a deeper conversation that had nothing to do with her.
What up? This is the Spare No Effort podcast. I'm Jeremy Jennings. I have a special guest here with me. I got Mr. Tersee Nande. I want to first say thank you for joining me on this podcast to chop it up with me a little bit. And I just want to start off by asking how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. Appreciate you, Jeremy, for having me on the show. I just came from a lot of traveling over 4th of July weekend, hanging out with the fam in Michigan, DC, was in Pittsburgh. So got a chance to hit up an amusement park in Cedar Point, in Ohio. So it was a good time.
Okay, great, great. And I really wanted to ask how you were doing because people see all the glamour and you were just on Pop the Balloon, but and it can be a lot. I'm sure it can be a lot. You go from kind of doing your own thing, kind of working in silo, if you will. Then in the snap of a finger, I'm sure you're getting all type of crazy DMs and people reaching out to you and everything. So it can be overwhelming, good or bad. It can be overwhelming. So truthfully, you doing all right, man?
Oh yeah. I got thick in. I'm excited about everything that's happened. Something I'm not used to. I don't come from this world, but at the same time,
Mhm.
it's real life conversations and situations. I think I live every single day, so it excites me to be able to get the word out there and talk about it and have conversations.
Right, right. Okay. Good, good to hear. Good to hear, man. Because everybody ain't built for it. Everyone ain't built for it. So glad to hear that. Right. So, man, I am big on origin stories. Right. I believe our upbringing and key moments in our life makes us who we are. Right. So I want to start from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your childhood, your upbringing, key moments in your life that you think shaped the person that you are today.
Yeah, man. Grew up from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Small, big town, I guess you can say, second biggest city in Michigan on the west side. Mainly Dutch, Nigerian household.
Right. Right.
Father and mother came from Nigeria on a student visa.
Okay.
Gave
Okay.
birth to me and my brother, and had an opportunity to grow up mainly in Grand Rapids, Michigan, playing sports, Boys and Girls Club, heavily involved, track, basketball, football, three sports all year long. So that was really the gist of my childhood, was hanging out with those I'll play sports with. You know, I was one of those kids that was out in the streets in terms of not really getting in trouble, but always
Mm-hmm.
been curious. So, bike rides, breaking curfew, going out to house parties, hanging
Mm-hmm.
out with friends, the movies, skating, all that fun stuff, kids used to do when they were outside,
Yeah.
chasing
Yeah.
girls, right?
Yeah.
So
Of course.
it
Of
was always
course. Of
cool to
course.
be the athlete in Little League and then go out and
Mm-hmm.
you'll see some of the people who come to the game. So that was all cool. But I think a lot of what changed my life was really the relationships I built through childhood, going into high school, and high school into college, being able to go to a really good high school with a coach that, was able to not only coach us up from a player's mentality, like a player's
Mm-hmm.
coach, but also at the time our coach was also in the league. He was playing for the Grand Rapids Rampage, one of the top arena football teams. He
Okay.
himself was badass, and he was like a father figure. My father was busy working 3 jobs, so this is
Mm-hmm.
this is the guy who kind of shaped my manhood, right? Taught me how to be tough and get a little grit under my belt. So I think a lot
Yeah.
of my high school experience prepared me for college and beyond, if I'm being honest. And
Okay.
yeah, so I'd say in the gist of it all, the transition from high school to college was really where I started to find myself, understand, my purpose, and really started understanding my passion as well.
Okay, yeah. One thing you mentioned is, just being a kid out in the street. And I came to this conclusion a few years ago. So one thing you mentioned is you hung out at the Boys and Girls Club. So it's great. Shout out to you for being a Boys and Girls Club alumni. Hopefully I look up and see you in the Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame. But man, it's funny, I realized this a few years ago. Us boys, when we're younger, we just do a lot of things that don't make sense, man. It's like we do a lot of stupid things. And you said, being out past curfew. And I can remember in particular the same thing, being out past curfew. And, you're staying out past curfew and you're formulating a lie in your head that you're going to tell your parents as to why you stayed out past curfew.
All
The
right.
lie don't make sense. It don't make sense at all. But in your mind at that time, you're like, this is going to make sense. My family is going to believe this. And it's funny. It's just amazing to see it all over again, man.
Uh-huh.
And as you said, we were outside. They're not outside as much. They're in technology a little more. So it's an interesting gauge, interesting perspective to see or
Yeah,
whatever.
for sure. And honestly, I think a lot of that has to do with what has transpired, right, over time
Hmm.
from relationship standpoint. We used to, if you liked the girl, you had to sneak over to her house, poke her head out the window, right? Come to the
Yeah.
backyard. You had to wait till the parents fell asleep. You had to
Hmm.
get real creative in order to really, I guess you could say, court a girl, right?
Hmm.
And it meant more. And
Yeah.
women appreciated it more. Girls appreciated it more, you know?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
fast forward to now, you mentioned people are inside now. It's a little more indirect engagement.
Mm.
So I think that played a lot into now people seem to be uncomfortable doing all of those things, right?
Hmm.
We're connected, but we're disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that plays into how the relationship dynamics go now because of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you said, we are more connected than ever, but at the same time, we're probably the least most connected ever. Right? And it's funny because you said you would go, try to find a girl, camp out in her backyard or whatever. And I'm a movie buff, so I'm always thinking about a movie, and I love stand up comedy, so I'm also always thinking about a comedy joke that relates to the topic of conversation. Right? I think about the movie Hot Tub Time Machine. I don't know if you've seen it, but they went back in time or whatever through the hot tub time machine, and they had a younger guy with them. He
Right.
was like 19, and he went back in time. He had a girl. He went back in time with them, and he had a girl he was feeling. And he asked her, they're back in time now, so this is probably the 80s or whatever. And he asked her, so how do I find you? What's your MySpace or what's your Facebook? She was like, what is that? You know what I mean? He was like, all right, what's your number so I can text you? What do you mean text? He was like, well, how do I find you? She was like, you come and find me or whatever. And he was like, man, that sounds like a lot of work. You know what I mean? But that's all
Right.
it was. That's all it was back then.
True. Honestly,
Um,
that was part of the excitement, right?
yeah, yeah.
It was like if a girl wanted you to come by their house when you was a
Mm-hmm.
kid, that means she must be really feeling you because you just weren't getting the invitation to come over to somebody's house like that. And for
No,
them to
man.
also on their side kind of, because you dated girls that had a father in the house and the last thing they want to do is get caught by their dad. So
Yeah, man.
if you had a girl that can sneak out the house to see you with her dad in the house, she must be really into you. And as a boy at the time, you can really appreciate that.
Because he, in a sense, risking her life. You know what I mean?
Right.
If Pops catch her. So yeah, yeah. Seriously, it's not like it used to be. It's really not like it used to be, and it's hurting their interpersonal skills as well. Regardless of what you do, you're gonna have to have these interpersonal skills. Regardless of how good of a therapist you are, nobody's gonna want you as their therapist if you can't connect with them. No matter how good of a writer you are, nobody's gonna want to see your work if you don't have those interpersonal skills and be polite with them. All right. So yeah, it's important, man. It's really important.
Yeah, and one of the things I realized as well was, growing up in the Boys and Girls Club, we had the opportunity to be around right girls because it was you had the girls sports had the boys, and then even some of the times if I'm just there, right? If I wasn't there to play basketball or practice, I could just be hanging out. It was a hangout,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you honestly was always in the company and engaging. And so you practice it every day and you're used to talking. I mean, from both sides, right? Girls are used to talking to boys, boys are used to talking to girls. We
Mm-hmm.
understood each other more, I feel like. Right? And it was also very, at the most organic level, right?
Mm-hmm.
As
Yeah.
kids, all we got is who we are, what we look like, what we're into, hobbies, right? And we could
Mm-hmm.
connect off of that, and that was good, right? It wasn't really about how much money you made. It wasn't about what kind of car you drive in. It's not about what you
Mm-hmm.
do. It was like if you got some confidence, you funny, you good at sports.
Yeah.
I guess popularity is always going to be a thing, right? So if you're a little bit popular,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, you're good to go. You were in there with the girls, right? So that's one of the things I
Yeah.
really enjoyed about being at the Boys and Girls Club. And now, when I look back and I compare to what I do see now with even younger girls, there's just a big void, and I feel like because especially these young men, these boys aren't growing up in the same type of environment. I
Mm-hmm.
just see so much of this awkwardness, right? And on some end, I
Yeah.
can feel like, okay, I understand why some girls have this weird disdain for guys that approach them these days. But on the
Mm-hmm.
opposite end, it's like y'all don't make it any easier for them to approach y'all, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
things
No,
were a little
I
more
agree.
direct back then.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's accountability on both ends, right? We're men, so we gotta hold our men accountable on how they are approaching women, right? And how they are treating women. If you're gonna decide to be in a relationship or get married or whatever, you gotta commit to that, right? But like you said from the start, how do you approach them? Are you approaching them with respect? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's all a lot of conflicts that we have these days. It's all a big misunderstanding and
Yeah,
lack of communication.
right. Absolutely. And I think communication is key, right? And there's so many forms of communication, right? So you talk
Mm-hmm.
about nonverbal. I think
Yeah.
a lot of nonverbal communication is where we've gone
Yeah.
wrong because
Mm-hmm.
we're so used to not speaking to each other. That's all we have to go off of, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just think about if someone wants to get to know you now, what do? They pull up your social medias, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is there's no conversation. They're doing basically their research. They're formulating a perception about you, and then
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, there's a little bit of a preconceived notion when they approach you because
Yeah.
they've already formed the judgment on you, right? And it's not bad. A lot of people say that it's bad to judge, but I honestly feel like everyone's judging all the time. There's nothing wrong with judging, right?
No.
It's a way
Yeah.
to allow us to have greater discernment, right, in what we do, right,
Mm-hmm.
and be content with decisions we make. So you have to judge, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it has to be a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because the communication again involves so much of this nonverbal exchange, it's
Yeah.
made it so hard to have a conversation in it to come from a good place because you've got people who have an internalized things that they held in, and because they've held it in from their experiences, now it's projected on you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And then when you talk about social media, a lot of people are getting their judgment off of people's highlight reels, right? Social media is nothing but a bunch of highlight reels. And also it's comparison, which is the thief of joy. And we're comparing our everyday lives to other people's highlight reels, right? But like you said, it's okay to judge because I try to tell people, people try to say, oh, it's social media, it's just a game, it ain't real. And it's like your social media is your personal brand. I don't know how many times I've tried to tell people when you apply for a job or when you apply for school, the marketing person or the HR person is going to search your name more times than not to look at your social media to see what type of person you are, to see if you're going to represent their brand properly. Right. So you can't get away from it. We're in social media. If you get off social media altogether because you're going to be judged.
Yeah, and
You know what
I
I
don't
mean?
think social media is a bad thing, right?
No, not at
So
all.
it's like with anything, right? I feel like I'm big on balance, and I feel like you
Mhm,
always have to equate that into everything that you do. So with social media, right? Sure, I'll see a
mhm,
girl, I'll meet a girl, I'll check out her social media. Now, I'm gonna think of a few different things as I'm looking at it. You know, how bad is it, right? Like, let's say, for instance, on a very extreme spectrum, there's a girl that's just highly promiscuous. She's got a lot of images on there where she's pretty much naked.
mhm.
So in the back of my mind, I'm gonna be like, okay, she seems like she could be promiscuous. However, right? Well, what does she do? Maybe she models, right? And even if
Mhm.
she models, right? What
Yeah.
type of model is it? You know what I mean? Are you an IG model? Are you signed to an agency? You know, I like to say that, I like to see the good in people. I'm more of the glass is half full. So I'm willing to
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
have a
Same.
conversation to give you the benefit of the doubt. However, I'm gonna still keep that in the back of my mind. Like I did check out your social media. Things start to add up when you put things together, and it's like,
Mhm,
okay, now I can kind of formulate a pretty concrete opinion that I feel comfortable with versus just
mhm,
taking the one source or one piece of information and just saying, okay, that's all it is. I always feel like you got to take information, you got to do your research,
mhm.
and you got to form a conclusion, right? So you can't believe everything you see, but you also don't want to dismiss it.
Yeah, and it's because we're more than just more than just one element of a person, right? You can be a nurse and be doing this, right? You can be an attorney and be doing this, running for government and doing this. But that is a part of who you are, right? And like you said, if you're going to approach this person, you got to keep that in mind and you got to accept that this could be a big part of who she is. Don't be surprised down the line and get frustrated down the line,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, and it's funny I've been in therapy for years now, right? And I'll talk about this all the time. I've had my share of failed relationships and learned a lot about myself. But one of the things I learned is that I date women based off potential, right? And the therapist said it just like this. She said, you can be dating a woman who got the potential to be a nurse, but she's a stripper. And that was one of my issues is I'm seeing it like, oh, this person got the potential to be this, and I'm seeing the good. And one of my personality strengths is a developer. So, I can see it, but you gotta take a person as if they're not gonna change. You know what I mean? And be
Right.
okay with that. Right. But man, you mentioned so your parents were immigrants, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so something else I learned, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so you're a first generation American. First generation Americans, y'all have a different work ethic, it seems, a different set of values. So you as a first generation American, do you think you have a different perspective just on the American dream rather than some people who aren't first generation Americans?
Man, that's a good question. Honestly, I think because of the condition I grew up in, like I didn't grow up super wealthy. I
Mhm,
grew up in the hood.
mhm,
Had friends who came from parent households. Very
mhm.
wealthy, lived out in the burbs. And I feel like there was an appreciation for both dynamics, right? Because I feel like on one
Mhm.
end, growing up in the hood really toughened me up, allowed me to stay humble, stay grounded. I had the book smarts, but it's
Yeah,
also good to have street smarts
of
versus,
course.
some of the folks in the suburbs, they were very coddled. So I
Mhm.
don't think they were really prepared for real life once they became adults in certain ways, right?
Yeah,
But to answer your
yeah.
question, my perception of what the American dream was, I never really bought into that
Okay.
because I was so attached to my African and Nigerian roots. Like we had a lot of family that was in Grand Rapids. Like every Sunday we had what was called Eve meetings, and that's our tribe in our language. And so every Sunday we had like all our family basically. I'm talking about 15 plus different family members, households, excuse me, kids,
Mhm.
uncles, aunts, and we would gather at somebody's house, and it was nothing but our culture, conversation, festivities, just We were just around it often enough
Okay.
to where I didn't buy into the American, type of traditions and culture. So even to this day,
Mhm.
when I date, you know, I'm very much firm on certain traditional aspects. When I meet women, I'm very firm on, my standards.
Okay.
And I think you kind of saw a little bit of that when I was on Pop the Balloon, right? Because,
Mhm.
you know, I don't buy into what I feel like is the buffoonery of what happens today with dynamics, right?
Mhm.
Again, like I said, I'm on social media a good amount of time, but
Right,
I don't
right,
let it affect my reality. And I
right,
think a lot
right.
of that can be attributed to because of the strong roots that I had with Nigerian household growing up.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And if not the American dream, your strong roots and your sense of work ethic, right? Because your family came over here with a purpose. Even if y'all started, in poverty, in the ghetto, if you will, your parents had, and please correct me if I'm misspeaking, right? But your family had had a goal in mind. It was working hard, probably still work hard to this day, right? So that sense of, and then still having the culture, your family around you. Yeah, that I'm sure that sticks with you still to this day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
my parents didn't care about us going to sports. Like, I played professional football. My brother played, in the NFL. So
Mm-hmm.
we've been around it. We did it. But even growing up, going from high school to college to professional sports, my dad never cared about all of that. He supported it, but the thing that always
Mm-hmm.
came out of his mouth was, "Are you reading books? Are you studying?"
Right,
That's the first
right.
thing he asked. He didn't ask me nothing about how was your sports. That came
Mm-hmm.
secondary. So
Right.
even to this day, talking about how to invest our money and save for the future and thinking about the future,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about family back home in Nigeria, right? So he's always
Mm-hmm.
had that at the forefront of everything we've done, even to this
Okay.
day.
Okay. Yeah, and it's so that is for real because you've mentioned that. I believe Yvonne Orji mentioned that about her parents. If I'm not mistaken, the comedian Godfrey. You all have a similar story in that sense, right? You all have other dreams and other goals, but your family is like, no, school comes first. You need to pick a good career. The sports is cool, but they really want you to be in academics and get a good career, in order to thrive in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they always say, sports aren't forever. We all know less than 1% of professionals actually stay a professional in the sports world, right?
Yeah.
So, they always say once your body goes, your brain will still be there. So that's something my
Uh-huh.
dad and parents always emphasized was you need to have something reliable to fall back on.
Right,
And
right.
that's having a degree, that's going to school, that's having a career outside of sports because it's more
Mhm.
sustainable.
Yeah,
And
right, right.
yeah, to this day, again, it's just he's never letting it go. So it's always
Yeah.
the conversation. It's almost the first thing we talk about. How's your work? What are
Mhm.
you doing? Are you thinking about how we're gonna do something back home? It's always the same conversation. So I can
Right.
definitely look forward to that every single time.
Right. And I'm sure it really helped because, and please add if I'm missing any, right? But what you said your occupations were on Pop the Balloon. You mentioned Pop the Balloon earlier. You're in healthcare tech. You're building homes in Africa, fitness model, and you have your own fitness LLC, correct?
Yes, yep. The been doing healthcare tech for almost 4 years now. Um,
Okay.
mainly sales.
Okay.
With even having the opportunity to be successful in that professional, it's allowed for me to do other things, right? So as I mentioned,
Mhm.
building homes back in Africa, Nigeria, my mom, she has a home we completed in the village.
Mhm.
And so she wants to build more and
Mhm.
ultimately provide, sort of this opportunity for some other family members to have, housing, right? Whether it's temporary, or also transition that into like an Airbnb type situation in Nigeria. So yeah, so we're working on building one. There's an area called Makodi, so it's like the city of Abuja, which is the capital, very close um, to
Okay.
the village. Well, I guess it's like 2 hours, but that's considered close there because the roads are so bad. But yeah, so ultimately we're going to have a significant amount of, again, properties where my mom, she's going to be managing it. And again, she's going to also have family that will join in and help manage. And we're just going to try to grow, and just take over as the Nande clan, I guess.
Yeah, and that's you investing in yourself, investing in things that can help your family, but also giving back to your community, giving back to your country, right? So that was amazing. When I heard that, I was like, that is amazing, right? And it's funny because on Pop the Balloon, and I know y'all have only so much time, but the things that you do is kind of just like glossed over, right? But you are doing a lot of amazing things. Fitness. And when did fitness become a big priority for you and a big part of your life?
Yeah, so funny thing about it is I never worked out in high school. I was a hooper growing up. And
You was a hooper?
yeah, got a scholarship for football. And I was sort of torn if I wanted to play basketball in college or football. Fortunately, the school I went to had a greater academic institute,
Mm-hmm.
great campus, but they also had a solid football team. One of the best teams in school history. Ben Roethlisberger was our quarterback my freshman year. For the
Oh,
sports
okay.
people out there, Miami of Ohio, shout out to them, my alma mater. Go
Okay.
Red Hawks. We
Yeah.
went 13-1. Absolutely tore it up. Got a ring and all that good stuff. That was a great intro to my college experience.
That was your
But yeah,
freshman year?
freshman year, yep.
Okay. Great, great.
So ranked 10th in the nation. So it was again a great start into my experience. But I never lifted weight until I got to college, and so I came
Mm-hmm.
in as a DB playing. Actually, I came in as a receiver and transitioned to defense, and I knew I had to get stronger. Right, I wasn't small, but I wasn't really strong. So during, of course, football, I had to do it because obviously it helped me on the field. But I realized how much junk I was eating in college. Obviously I was younger, had the metabolism,
Mm-hmm.
but post college, when I realized, right, I was kind of in the real world and realized the type of effect this health and wellness had on me, right, from a mental standpoint,
Yeah.
relational standpoint. And then,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you look good. I think Dion was famous for saying, you look good, you play good. You play good, they pay good, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I realized, yeah, I didn't really want to feel sluggish. I also realized working out was like meditation. I'm like the least stressed person ever. I'm always very level headed. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember the last time I actually was like frustrated beyond, the ability to handle it. Right. I
Right,
feel
right.
feel like I'm able to really be present when I'm around people, compartmentalize, right? So very well at doing that. Always self-reflecting. I feel like just exercise in general, eating healthy allows for mental clarity, allows for me to have
Mm-hmm.
a very logical mind and always look at the things that I'm blessed with versus the small things and the trials and tribulations I go through. So,
Right.
and I can really honestly say that all really came when I started working out, started feeling better
Mm-hmm.
with myself. Of course, taking advantage of my Nigerian genetics, thinking about the future too, right? If I wanted to have a family, I want to be around for my kids. I want to be healthy. I want to look as young
Mm-hmm.
as possible for as long as possible.
Right, right.
I want to be sure to pass off my genes and create the most, you know, prototype child or individual I can, right? And
Mm-hmm.
have kids. If I'm leaving a legacy, I want them to have the best genetics. I want them to be able to also prosper
Right.
in a much better way than I did, right? And I think we all, as men, want that. When you have kids, you want them to be better off than you were.
Of course, of
And
course.
honestly, I just think there's nothing but benefits to being healthy, right? I can't really think of a bad, you know, aspect of working out.
No, not at all. And you talk about the mental aspect of it. And right now, I got injuries from not working out properly, right? Growing up, I started working out just doing push-ups. And my motivation for working out is, like you said, I grew up in the hood and I've always been a kind person, but I didn't want nobody to bother me. So, I started doing push-ups to build muscle. So not to bully people, but so I wouldn't get bullied. And so I could also stop people from getting bullied, right? A few years ago, I hurt my knee, got that together. Then my shoulder started acting up, it's been hard to be consistently working out. Got to get surgeries in between or whatever. But it wasn't until I wasn't able to work out that I realized the effect it has on my mental health. Because I went from working out, I'm confident. Now I can't work out and I wasn't eating the best. And that's when the panic attacks started happening, right? It wasn't until, I started going to therapy and realizing, to an extent, like I don't even know who I am if I'm not in shape, right? And I had to find myself, and be okay with like the little things with walking and eating right. Right. But yeah, it's amazing. They call it what the best antidepressant, right? Working out. So yeah, so your
Yeah.
fitness. Oh, go ahead. My apologies.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I mean, just think about what you said, right? So, kind of building yourself up puts you in the best light for others to really appreciate who you are. I think if people gravitate that towards that, other thing is when you're working out, just think about how much discipline goes into that. There's a lot of characteristics and, telling things that you can find out about people who are really into health and wellness, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm Pop the Balloon, I had mentioned I'm into somebody who is very much into health and wellness, somebody who definitely appreciates self care, right?
Hmm.
Because you are a brand, whether you want to admit it or not, right? You may not be a big
Right. Right.
brand, but every time you step out in the public, again, as we mentioned earlier at the beginning, people are judging you, right? So
Yeah.
if you look good and you put your best foot forward, people want to talk to you. In my sales career, every time I've gotten into doors, it's because people are like, "Man, you must be an athlete, or you must have played, or something." And it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with business. They just want to know who I am, why do I look like
Yeah.
this, and how
Yeah.
can I be on their team? Because a lot of people gravitate towards athletes, right? Naturally, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, you put so much effort into working out, and that just transitions into all other aspects of your life, right? Being able to
Hmm.
wake up early in the morning and get after in your work,
Right.
having, like you mentioned before, work ethic, combination
Hmm.
of my parents instilling that in me, and then plus sports. It's like a
Right.
super
Right.
saiyan, the work ethic, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just a lot of great things come from it.
Okay. And while we're still on fitness, so your LLC, and you said you focus on being fit on in all areas of life, physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual. So what does that look like?
Yeah, it's like provide. It's like the whole person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like four wheels of a car. You got one wheel that ain't working right, throws the whole car out of whack, right? The way it drives.
Of course, yeah.
So that's how I feel when you're talking about being fit for life, right? You talked
Mm-hmm.
about it, right? When you started working out, you look good, you have more confidence, right? When you don't work out, you
Hmm.
lose that confidence, right? Well,
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
when we have an area of ourselves where we're lacking, we start to find ways to overcompensate. And that's not always great when we're constantly overcompensating
Right,
because
right.
just the context of overcompensating means that we're making up for a deficit somewhere else. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, the way we get back to a state of equilibrium and balance is by finding a way to improve those weaker areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you have to be physically fit because when you're physically fit, you feel good about yourself. You feel good about yourself, you have a better mentality. If your brain
Mm-hmm.
is, being conditioned, right? Brain health, you're able to think well, you're able to process
Mm-hmm.
information faster, you're able to apply information better,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to focus better, right? You can set goals and achieve them. If you're able to do that, you can meet your financial means, right? Those are
Right.
byproducts that start to
Mm-hmm.
accumulate from being fit in all these other aspects. When you're able to accomplish your goals, that's where financial freedom comes. When financial freedom comes, that's when the ladies will start showing up, right? When the ladies start showing up, that's when you get a relationship. When a relationship comes, that's when you get
Mm-hmm.
a family and meet all your other goals beyond that. So I think all of it comes together, and it's sort of like this great life cycle that
Mm-hmm.
I think every guy needs to really incorporate, right? Having something to be to instill your faith in, believing
Mm-hmm.
in something, right? So all of
Right.
that goes into it.
Right. Okay. And so would you consider yourself a fitness consultant? How does it, I'm trying to understand how does it work? So someone kind of fills out an inquiry online.
Yeah, more fitness consultant, right? So I like to
So,
have conversations. I'm very much a personable person.
uh,
I realized before I used to try to show people how to work out, but one
mhm,
of the things is we're in this age of information. And I think where a lot of people sort of go wrong is the overwhelmed information. Sometimes too much information can be detrimental, right?
at
Because
once.
right. You sort of lose focus because you're trying too many different things, right? So when
Mhm,
I like to speak to people, I like to find out about them and what works for them. I had to figure out myself, my own body, right? I had to figure out my own self development, right? Because I'm the person that's lived with myself for all these years. No one else knows me better than I know myself. And
mhm,
so that is where it starts with people really getting to know themselves ins and out, goods and bad, figuring out again, how do I better myself in every avenue? And
right,
once you're
right.
able to have that real conversation with yourself, right, and admit to yourself what your faults are, where your weaknesses are, that's where you
Mhm,
start to grow and develop. And
right,
part of it
right.
is taking into account, where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Having
Mhm,
those conversations. What are your goals? What do your
right,
relationships look like? That's a big
right.
part. A lot of people got bad relationships, and that kind of festers into a lot of the other bad decisions that they make or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
lack of progress they could be making.
Mhm.
Definitely a
Okay.
consultation standpoint is what I feel, the most value when I'm speaking to others about my everything to do with fitness LLC.
Okay. And what's the name of it?
Everything to do with fitness.
So that is the name. Everything to do with fitness. Okay. And how can they? So what is it? Website? What is the website?
Yeah, so we're still definitely working on development for
Okay.
our webpage. But of course,
Okay.
you're always welcome to DM me. I get a lot of DMs inside of my IG page, which is everything to do with fitness, and that's
Okay.
everything the number two or
Okay.
everything number two do with fitness.
Okay. Great. Great. And sometimes word of mouth is the best advertisement, right? And those success stories. So great. Great. Okay. So so of course you were on Pop the Balloon recently. What made you wanna, audition? I'm assuming it was an audition. What made you want to audition for Pop the Balloon?
Yeah, I think the main thing it was again, as I mentioned, I'm very open, right, to trying different things. I haven't been dating for at least 2 years, so been single for at least 2 years. and and I wouldn't say I've been actively looking, right? I've been more so focused on my career.
Right.
But at the same time, I never lose sight of a good opportunity, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm out and I meet someone, I'm definitely open to kind of exploring where that could go, right? Very much
Right. Right.
organically. Interesting enough, my cousin Eric, who connected us, he mentioned, hey man, you
Yeah.
should go on
Yeah.
there. Like you would definitely probably have a chance of finding a match, and you get to meet
Right.
some
Right.
some different people from all walks of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why not? You know,
Right. Right.
it's I'm a very spontaneous person, right? Really do
Uh-huh.
got a passion for life, and so I figured, hey, why not? What can I possibly lose by going on here?
Yeah. Right. Right. And it's funny. And your cousin is my guy, really good friend of mine, a good guy. So, and how tall are you? If you don't mind me
6'2".
asking. 6'2". And we haven't met in person, but your cousin and I are about the same height, right? So us being short, we know if we go and pop the balloon, just our height alone, they're gonna pop on us, right? So we gotta gas our taller friends and taller cousins up. So we're no seriously, we're it was. I hope it was a great experience for you, man.
So, Jeremy, you're saying that the girls can have their preferences, but the guys can't?
Hey man, yeah, the game is the game, right? Hey, yeah, as one of those double standards, right?
Yeah. No, it was a great experience. Again, I know it was very controversial, the whole hair comment about one of
Uh-huh.
the ladies that was on the show.
Right, right.
But it really was just what it was. There was no malice that came from it. It
Uh-huh.
was a lot of people were like, there's shrinkage and all this other terms that I was hearing.
Uh-huh.
One of the first things I thought about was, well, when men come on there and they're not dressed for the occasion, we hear
Uh-huh.
about it, right?
Right, right.
So if your hair is longer, even in natural state, you can comb it out or whatever you need to do, style it up a little bit more, you know, then that's what I would expect as well, right? That's no different from me coming and, wearing hoop shorts when I should be
Right,
dressed up,
right.
right?
Right, and it
So,
was some woman on there. One of the reasons I believe why a woman popped her balloon was what she was wearing. Correct.
right, yeah.
Right, right.
So again, yeah, they have their preferences. I heard a lot of times, not really feeling an outfit, that's fine. You can change clothes,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So those are things that I don't wear the outfit every single day, right? I have
Right, right.
different styles. So we're talking about deeper things of substance. One thing I can say is whether you like my outfit or not, I know the outfit was good. I mean, it
Yeah.
may have not been the best outfit, but the outfit was
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it's their preference, and it appeared, correct me if I'm wrong, when you made the comment about the hair, because hair can change. But when you were speaking about most of the women, it seemed like you were speaking from a perspective of if I saw this woman like out in a bar or whatever the case may be, at first glance, she wouldn't be my type.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because even looking at a lot of the aftermath, right? Different, reviews, people kind of, doing their take on the episode. A lot of folks
Mm-hmm.
thought that I was picky
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps I like, white girls, right?
Right, right,
But it's funny because anyone that knows me knows I've only dated black girls, right?
right, right.
And one of the things that kind of like going back to what you were saying, right? Is yeah, if I'm out, that's exactly how I approach it. The time that I was on that stage and having those interactions with those women, I actually forgot about all the lights and cameras, right?
Uh-huh,
I actually
uh-huh.
felt like I was out talking to women in some sort of social setting, right?
Right,
And
right.
so I was really focused on having a actual conversation of substance.
Okay.
And what was very telling, and even for me, was
Uh-huh.
what happened during my experience was very similar with how things happen, right? When you go out and you meet women nowadays in public, right? It's a very short-sighted mindset in
Uh-huh.
terms of right finding a way, which it seems like to deselect the man, right? So finding things that are very minuscule, minute versus all of these other great things, right? Even on the episode, if you watch, most of the comments for most of the contestants, nice guy, looks good, dresses well, but you're
Yeah,
too nice,
yeah,
or your voice isn't deep enough, or you seem too
yeah,
laid back. I'm
yeah,
like, so you're
yeah,
telling me you got 90% of what you want,
yeah, yeah,
95% of what you want, but this is what
yeah.
is ultimately gonna, you know, be the determining factor. What that tells me, right, is if I'm in a relationship with any of them, right? Well, what happens when I work my butt off to provide a lifestyle and support you, and we're living in all, we have nothing but blessings to be grateful for, and you're
Mhm.
willing to take something so minute and just blow up the whole set? right?
Right, right.
So it's a deeper, greater mentality that comes along when you're talking about, what are we really talking about here? So you're always
Mm-hmm.
going to find a way to sabotage something good. Whereas I'm always looking at focusing on the good and building better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Okay.
yeah, and again, I see that all the time, in real life when I'm out and I'm talking to girls, they really, and you see it, even if they're into you, they're attracted to you, they're almost trying to find a way to either turn the dynamics in their favor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right. So it's like, okay, I'm feeling them, but I don't want to know I'm feeling them. I
Uh-huh.
can't give myself up too easy, right?
Right, right.
And then that's where it's like, okay, I'm gonna give him a little bit of a dismissal and see if he's willing to, try to rebuttal. But yeah, no, overall, those I have nothing against any of the contestants. But again, most of them weren't my type, if you're being honest.
Right, right. So, and that's on surface level. So, do you think any of them, if you, let's say, if you worked closely with them or you just became friends with them, do you think after getting to know them a little more, because you only had so long to get to know those women, right? Some of them you didn't get to know at all because they popped the balloon or whatever. So, like, let's say the first young lady, with the hair comment, do you think that she could be your type if you got to know her and you all formed a friendship bond first?
Man, absolutely. So as I told you before, right? I have my perceptions, right? Even going back to when I told you, I look at the social media page, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm also gonna do my research, right? And nowadays with me, right? Personality is a major component, right?
Right,
It
right.
makes or break you, right? The most beautiful girls that I've been able to talk to and date, when I found out their personality just wasn't there, or it was like not much substance, it made them fall from a 8, 9 to 5 or 6. You know what I mean, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? And it was like, if I'm attracted to you, and then you have a personality, there's a lot of commonalities, and greater depth to you. It actually
Mm-hmm.
makes me more attracted than I can ever be to a woman. And so,
Right.
yeah, really, with my conversation to all of them, with all of the contestants, you know, I was open to having, especially for the ones who definitely, there were some good looking girls in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there was an opportunity to have a more engaging conversation with them, I definitely believe we maybe would have formed a connection based off of something else versus initial attraction.
Right, right. And that's what makes it so tough is y'all only have so long, right? That's what really makes it tough.
But isn't that
So let me ask.
indicative of real life?
Yeah, yeah.
Anytime you approach a girl, you got a very
It's that
minute,
first
yeah.
yeah, it's that first impression. You're right. You're right. I will say because you do like a woman that's in shape. Now this kind of is answered by one of your values. You want a woman that values fitness, right? But let's say you get a woman and you have a family, and some women that have kids put on weight, right? Now, what would that look like for you in terms of being in a relationship? And of course, if she values fitness, she's going to get back in the gym and get it off, right?
Right.
But in my experience with some women with the postpartum and everything, sometimes it does affect them mentally. And sometimes they're not motivated to get back in the gym, or it may be a little harder to shake back. I'm sure some people ask those questions as well, that based off of some of your comments, right?
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing, right? When you have habits, these are things that you do routinely.
Mm-hmm.
So the person I'm with who is into health and wellness, it's not something
Mm-hmm.
that they just started doing. It's not something that they take
Right.
lightly. So just
Mm-hmm.
like an athlete, we know how to bounce back. We're used to going through adversity, right? And we're used to
Mm-hmm.
dealing with it, right? We're used to getting yelled at our coaches, right? Getting pushed to our limits and having
Yeah.
to take that extra breath to get through that last rep, whatever it is, right? So it's no different with the person I'm dating, right? Because again, as I mentioned before, when you're talking about someone who really truly values health and wellness, there's a mindset that they have, right?
Of course.
They understand the greater purpose. So
Mm-hmm.
if I am with someone who becomes pregnant, more than likely they're gonna be working out during the pregnancy, right?
While they're
It's
pregnant,
healthy to
yeah.
work out when you're pregnant, right? And then once
Mm-hmm.
they give birth, they're gonna be trying to snap right back, and they probably will snap back faster because they've been doing this. Their body's used to it, and so at least they would want to put in the effort, right?
Right.
And I think that's the most important thing I can want is for someone who wants to put in the effort to be better, right? To always want to grow, right? To not be complacent, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
because we're together don't mean, all right, it's time to be comfortable. We
Mm-hmm.
still want to always push each other to grow and be our best selves. We only get one life, right? We
Right.
only get one
Right.
shot at
Right.
this. So why not optimize this one life we get? I find that a lot of times, with even friends that I grow with, you know, they exact example you just used. They got married. They used to be athletes. Now their significant other put on weight, and they didn't want to challenge them, right? They sort of
Mm.
accepted it, even though they didn't really like it. And because they weren't really willing to really speak about it, or they didn't feel comfortable, they
Mm-hmm.
also started putting on weight. Because it's like, well, if she's putting on weight, then well, what am I working out for? So it's almost like a sense of complacency that comes over them. But then they see me all the time. They're like, man, I need to get back in shape. Every time they see me, like, I need to get back in shape, which tells me there's a certain undertone of you not really feeling that you're living your best life, right? In terms of,
Uh-huh.
you could be better. And if you don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're living your best life, how is that actually festering into other aspects of your life? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're not telling me, but I'm sure it's there. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel, if you are someone that is mentally in that mindset, it's habitual, right? So there's no reason that you couldn't snap back, or you don't take it for granted.
Right. And it's your type physically. I know you say, my type, but it's also their mindset, right? Their mindset. So let's say one of those women that weren't physically your type, you know what I mean? Because you say that, not athletically built or whatever. And let's say she'd be like, hold on now, I was actually bigger than this and I have a goal. And she show you a picture, she done lost about 40 pounds. And she's like, I got about 20 more to go, but I'm gonna get there. What if one of those ladies would have hit you with that?
Oh, that's great. That means you got some sense of, first of all, a goal that you set and you're accomplishing, you're working towards. You're practicing healthy habits, right? You're building a healthy habit. You're showing
Mhm.
commitment. You know what I'm saying? Those are all key indicators I'm reading from that. From seeing that. So that's great.
Yeah. Now, would it make you have a second thought, like, okay, maybe, we can make something happen? She's already on that trajectory. We can be in the gym together. You know what I mean? I can motivate her.
Absolutely. If they're willing to allow me to guide them in that aspect,
Uh-huh.
since I do feel like I've got enough experience and knowledge, and I've been doing it for so long. If they
Uh-huh.
feel comfortable with me guiding them in that aspect, and they trust me to do that, then that's great.
Okay.
But also, you got to remember, if I were to meet one of them on the show, it doesn't mean we're together right away, right? It just
Right,
means
right, right.
it's the first initial connection, right? There's still a
Mm-hmm.
long ways for us to go. So just as I mentioned before, with the social media page, I see that, and then over time, you have to see if everything else kind of, checks out to be either what I may have perceived, or if there's something different about that person. So I think once we
Right.
actually match, we go off and we start doing these things, time will tell, right? Are you doing this for me?
You're right.
Doing this for you? Are you faking the funk?
That's
So
a big, and that is a big part of relationships. You got to want to do it for yourself. And that's regardless if you want to get up and get healthy, more healthy, get a better job, go back to school. You got to do it for yourself, not the other person.
absolutely. And you said it earlier, right? We can't change people.
No.
So I don't want to have to change someone, right? I want
Mm-hmm.
them
Right,
to
right.
already appreciate themselves, and I can only
Mm-hmm.
add to it.
Right.
So if you're somebody who needs me in order
Mm-hmm.
for you to feel your best, then that's probably not good. That's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
already have that internal, self sense of worth, then
Hmm.
that's great. I can always help build upon that.
Right, right. And like you said, it's not like if y'all form a connection, y'all getting married the next day, right? Y'all can form a connection, be friends, go on some dates. You look up a couple of months later, she's in better shape than what she was than when she met you, right? And that could be the thing, like, hey, I really like this characteristic of you. I think I want to maybe take this to the next level. But it's looked at. They looked at it. Your comments very black and white, right? But that's a great example. It is not black and white. Another extreme, I'm sure someone was thinking of, the short hair comment. They're saying, I'm a woman. I can, I may come in with my hair cut off tomorrow. I can come in, with long hair or whatever. I'm sure you being with a woman, she has long hair. Her cutting her hair, coming up with a short hairstyle wouldn't be something that would end a relationship or anything, right?
No, honestly, I've never dealt with that. Every girl I've ever dated had longer hair.
Mhm.
Actually, one girl I dated, this was right around the time I graduated from college. She did ask me, she asked my opinion on what do I think if she cut her hair shorter. And, obviously, she showed me what it looked like, and I said it looked great. And she actually did cut her hair a little bit shorter.
Mhm.
But again, I think with the comment, it was very much just what it was. It wasn't. I didn't say her hairstyle wasn't bad at all. In terms of her hair,
Right, right.
it just wasn't my cup of tea. You know
And this is based off first impression.
exactly.
Right, right, and your clothes, and she may have been the one that made a comment about what you was wearing or whatever, but just like your clothes can change, her hair can change, right? But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, because I don't watch Pop the Balloon that much, but when your cousin Eric reached out to me, and he kind of told me that he kind of gassed you up to get on that audition, right? And then he was like, yeah, my cousin made it, and he was like, he gonna be on this episode. And so I was looking or whatever, and you made the hair comment. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, come on, Tersee.
But
You know what I mean?
here's the thing, right? You got to
Uh-huh.
remember, she had already popped on me.
Right, right.
So when I'm getting asked a question as to is she your type, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, man, maybe, in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, if she did have a better hairstyle, she might look better. Like that's what I'm thinking about. I'm processing this, like, because again, it's just all I have to go off of is just what she looks like. I haven't had a conversation with her.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm looking at based on what she's wearing, how she looks. I'm like, man, would I approach her? And honestly, in that moment, I'm like, not really. I just
And
wouldn't.
that was your rationale when I approach her. And
Right.
it's no. And it was a no for you.
It was a no for me, right? So now again, let's
Hmm.
flip it because people have asked me, well, what if she said she was into you, right? So, and I said, and I stand by what I said. And yeah, if she was into me, we would have more conversation. It would because I was so like I don't know, not so much. That was literally what I said. Not so much. And
Hmm.
literally by me saying not so much, if you really look at my facial expression, I actually was kind of like
You
indifferent.
was contemplating it.
Yeah,
You was
I
yeah,
was contemplating. I was
yeah.
like, yeah, man, she could, but not so much,
Hmm.
right? So maybe if she had a different outfit on and a different hairstyle, it would have blew me away. I would be like, oh man, yeah, that's absolutely. So
Hmm.
again, I'm very open, you know,
Hmm.
but again, in
Right.
that moment, I was being honest.
Yeah. And she popped on you first, like you stated. And if she wouldn't have, she would have left her balloon up unpopped. Y'all possibly would have gotten to know each other. Because from what I've seen in the show, if the balloon is unpopped, now y'all get to have ask a few more questions
Hmm.
and get to know each other a little bit more. So it could have been one of those. She got to know you a little more. Okay, you got to know her a little more. It's like okay, yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
y'all possibly could have been a match and could have got to know each other a little further off, off of the show.
absolutely. I had this conversation. I was like, if I'm able to select the person that I want to date, of
Hmm.
course I'm gonna select what I'm into. Like it's like
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
playing a video game and I get to build a creative player, I'm gonna build them in the image that I like, right? So
Hmm.
basically, what I'm saying is because I'm I get a lineup of women that I get to ultimately choose from, right?
Right, right.
So that is my selection, right?
Mhm.
But at that moment, I wasn't choosing, right? These are people who had already popped on me. So
Right, you
now
didn't even get the opportunity to choose.
I didn't get the opportunity to choose. So now you're asking me about what I approached in, which means the ball would be in my court. Like, so if I'm out in the ball and I'm seeing a bunch of different options, she's not the
Mhm.
option that I would go for first. Is essentially how I'm
Right,
thinking about that, and that's how I'm processing that moment.
right, right.
But
No, I
again,
got you.
if we're having a conversation, she could be
Mhm.
extremely attractive based on other things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. But all y'all had to go on was physical appearance, right? And yeah, you made that comment, and every woman on there that was remaining popped their balloons, right? And the one young lady, she kind of, yeah, she kind of tried to go in on you a little bit,
She
right?
tried.
What were you thinking during that moment?
I'm being honest. I blacked out once she started trying to go in because honestly, in that moment, it's like, oh yeah. As I mentioned before, right? I've been so content with my growth as an individual. You can't
Mhm.
shake my foundation. It's too strong, right? So when I
Mhm.
see someone off the hinges like that, I'll automatically check out. I compartmentalize the fact that okay, she's talking, but she's not saying anything of worth for me, right?
Right, right.
Because we're not having a conversation. It just became someone trying to yell their point, and
Mhm.
it wasn't a productive conversation.
Right,
So
right.
at that point, not even allowing me to respond to things that she was saying. She mentioned that my mom has short hair, and I said, no, she doesn't. And I
Right,
even
right.
have evidence to show you
Right.
that she doesn't. Rather than
Mm.
you own up to an opinion that was incorrect, right?
Mhm.
You made an assumption, excuse me, that was incorrect and say, okay, my bad, I apologize. It let me know that you didn't have any respect for me, right? If you don't have respect for me, then I don't need to have a conversation with you. And,
Right.
and
And
if,
you didn't disrespect her at all.
yeah, so I'm not going to lose hair follicles and get upset, and you're
Mhm.
not going to throw me, out of whack because how you feel. That you're allowed to feel how you feel, but I can control how I react to it. And in that moment,
Right.
what she was saying wasn't even worth a reaction.
Right. Right. And she doesn't know you, right? And her even bringing up your mother, she don't know what the relationship is with your mother. Like me, my mother is deceased, right? So if I would have been in that situation and she would have brought up something about my mother while like going in on me, it probably would have upset me a little bit, right? Not saying I would have did anything. I would have tried to remain calm as possible as well, but it would have upset me a little bit. And I think I do remember when you said, my mother actually has long hair. She was like, "Oh, it doesn't matter," right? And it was just, yeah. And then you hit her with the comment. He was just like, "Yeah, sounds triggered."
Yeah. Well,
Is that what you like? Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's all good. Because one of the things that I immediately sort of thought about when she said it doesn't matter and just continue trying to force her point on us was this
Mm-hmm.
is what a lot of men go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, right? Sort
Yeah.
of the dismissal of what we're trying to say and how we actually feel about certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be a recurring theme that even when you see it on other episodes.
Right.
When
Right.
guys kind of speak up, right, in the most polite way, it's
Mm-hmm.
dismissed.
Right.
It's ridiculed. It's almost like a gang mentality where they're all laughing at the person, things like that. So it was an example of showing, okay, well, how can you actually expect to get a man and you're not even willing to listen to them? You just said
Mm-hmm.
something that wasn't true, and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't take no accountability or ownership for saying something that wasn't true. You just
Right.
dismissed it.
Right.
So if we're in a relationship and we're talking about something that deals with me and you directly, I can only imagine how that conversation would go. If you're
Mm-hmm.
blowing up about something that's not about you,
Mm-hmm.
how would that look if it is about me and you?
Right, right. And you're looking like, hey, if we were in a relationship, is this how you're gonna act? Is this how we're gonna be resolving conflict? right?
Exactly.
Because it's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be healthy at all.
Yeah, it's not gonna be healthy. So that's why I was like, you seem triggered, because
Yeah, yeah.
at this point you're just trying to talk over me. You didn't even allow for me to
Mhm,
even respond. I couldn't get a point across. You weren't trying to understand me, right? You just wanted to be right. And my thing is like,
mhm.
one of the things that I think I've found invaluable in my adulthood is not always trying to be right about things that you may have experienced or your perception, right? It's found that there's a greater victory in understanding people and being okay with the indifferences. You can
Mhm.
believe something and I can believe something. We don't have to agree, but we can coexist,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So it's the same thing in relationships. Like, okay, you may not like the fact that I don't like shorter hair.
Mhm.
That's fine. You don't like bald guys,
Right, right.
but we can coexist. I
Yeah,
understand you,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And and like you said, we're much deeper than what meets the eye, and like you said, understanding. And I always talk about in relationships, you got to communicate, and you got to communicate your vulnerabilities and just your perception, your worldview, right? And some, let's say a woman doesn't like a man that's bald. A guy can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, you don't like a guy that's bald. What's wrong with you? You got an issue with me, but you don't know why. It could have been her father was bald and he used to mistreat her, right? Or a man liking short hair. It could be because a girl that had short hair broke his heart, or whatever the case may be, right? And I try to approach every situation, every misunderstanding with curiosity, because like you said, at the end of the day, even if we don't understand each other, we still have to coexist, and we still should be respectful to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that just absolutely, blows my mind is that it's okay to have preferences, right? I think
Hmm.
preferences is what make individuals unique, right? We have preferences for the foods we eat. We have
Right.
preferences for the things we do, right? For the people we talk
Hmm.
to, you
Hmm.
know, we literally live on preferences day to day. Everything you're
Right.
doing. So why is relationship preferences any different?
Right. Right.
So not saying that someone is shooting out of their league, right?
Hmm.
But you're allowed to still want to make a decision because you have to own that decision once you make it. You can't get with someone like you said and try to change them. I got with this person, I thought they were going to be different,
Right.
right?
Right.
So the same thing. If I'm going to choose what I like, I want to choose something that I know I'm going to be content with. I'm not going to have any regrets, and that's really what it is.
Right. Right. And like you said, it's all about preference, and a lot of women have been on the show and had preferences. I believe actually on that same episode, a woman may have mentioned something about a guy's hair. She didn't like a guy's hair, ironically enough. Right. But yeah, and I guess that's the double standard. And I do want to ask, are some double standards okay?
Sure, you know, it's about living in reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I'm sure you've heard the double standard all the time, right? Let's just use something everyone can probably relate to. If me and you walk up to an establishment, a nightlife establishment, more than likely
Mm-hmm.
we probably gonna have to pay to get in there, right? Or,
Yeah.
we're gonna be a paying customer like everybody else. But if there's a really good looking girl, she has a little bit more wiggle room and options on how she's gonna get in there without having to pay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It may be another guy paying for her. It might be the owners like, okay, she looks good. We want her in here because
We
other
need her in
guys,
there.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so it is what it is, right? And I'm not mad at her. Good for her. You know what I'm saying? Good for them,
Right.
right?
Right.
Double standards, don't have to be something that again you overreact to because perhaps you're not benefiting from it, right? It's actually more
Mm-hmm.
strength and understanding. You just got to find another way to work around it. I think that's where the mentality of an athlete comes from. And, it's like, okay, well, I expect there to be adversity. So I expect to have a solution for it.
Right. Right. And another one is, and I'm in a relationship, right? If I had it my way, I would be providing well enough to where my lady could do whatever she wants to do in life without worrying about the financial gain of it, right? Now, I'm okay with the double standard that if my lady was working hard and I'm sitting at home not doing much of anything, I look like a bum. I'm perfectly okay with that, right? So some double standards is like, okay, it is what it is. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? So, men have some, well, very few, but we got some things that, we're able to get away with that, women can't. And I think we all know,
Man sleeping around, your man sleeping
yeah,
around with a lot of women. Women do it, they're viewed a certain way. You know what I mean? That's one of them.
exactly, right? And I think we just have to understand just, what, it may not be right, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, what would be the impact if it was the other way around?
Right,
So,
right.
you know, hey, if women wanted to sleep around, right? I mean, we already are kind of in an era now where there's like so much liberation when it comes to sex,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And where has that gotten us, right? You have a
Mhm.
decline in healthy relationships, essentially, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got people selling their sex all over the place.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Literally, I remember 10, 15 years ago, it blows my mind, right? Because I live in South Florida and I've been here for almost 12 years. And I've seen the
Okay.
transition from even 12 years ago. There was so much more subtleness in how women behaved, right? Because social media really hadn't taken off like that. If you went
Uh-huh.
out, let's say if you went out, you could talk to a bartender and actually have a pretty good conversation and actually probably take her on a date, right? Because
Yeah.
she wasn't really getting around like that. She wasn't getting this astronomical amount of attention via social media and in person.
Right, right.
So there's still a little bit of humility there from her standpoint.
Mhm. Right.
Fast forward 10 years later, absolutely cannot talk to a bartender because they're getting hit on by 1,000 guys a night.
Mhm.
Their social media is flooded, right?
Yeah.
So the last thing they want to do, rightfully so, and I understand it, is to be approached by another weird dude,
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
too much. So I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, again, I've seen the transition, right? And this is really what I notice about what seems to be with a lot of women is they get so much attention from guys all over the place, online,
Yeah.
in person, that it's almost like, well, now if you want my attention, you kind of have to buy my attention. And what does that mean? Like
Mhm.
you gotta take me on an expensive date. You gotta
Mhm.
show me a lavish lifestyle up front, right? Before
Right.
you know, I'm willing to reciprocate any sort of attention or even show you that I'm into you in that type of way, right? So it
Yeah.
just seems like that's way too common. But then, I also have to say, with many of the men who fall victim to that, you gotta have, you know, you gotta have a backbone, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
just like I said, I don't compromise my standards. I don't care what era I'm living in, right? You know,
Mhm.
if I feel if this was more of a mentality for a lot of guys, and I think we would be better off in relationships because anytime there's a significant movement, I truly believe this is
Mhm.
created by men. So we
A
kind of can
significant
control it.
movement is created by
It's
men.
created by men. So I feel like if we wanted to really get rid of this chaos,
Mhm.
men could control that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. And with saying all this, I want to make it clear, and I'm sure you don't mind either, have no problem with sexual liberation, right? With women living their lives. And I just want everyone, men too. I want them to everyone to understand, the law of cause and effect, right? It's trade-offs to everything we do. So if you are someone out there that's living promiscuous or, living, showing, revealing or whatever the case may be, you can do that, live your life, but there are trade-offs to that. You're going to attract certain men. right? And if a man, you choose this woman type of woman, and you know this ain't really what you want, this don't align with your values. Understand that's what you chose, right? But we can't be surprised with the trade-offs to it. We can't have it both ways. That's just not the way life works. And
Absolutely.
that's the thing I just want everyone to realize, men and women. It's trade-offs to every decision we make. It's trade-offs to every lifestyle decision that we make. And that's if you decide to go to school. The trade-off is you're gonna have to study or you're failing. You may get in college, you may get in a lot of student debt, right? There's some good to it as well. It's you want to make a lot of money, a trade-off is you gotta work hard, right?
Yeah.
So it's trade-offs to everything, and we're not immune to it. No one is immune to it.
Yeah, everything you said, I totally agree with. I think one of the key elements in everything you said is we have to be accountable for that.
Mhm.
All starts with accountability, right? And so
Yeah.
when I look back at my interaction, even on the show and other episodes I've seen, it just seems like overwhelmingly men are forced to be accountable for themselves, right? And if you think about it,
Mhm.
you don't ever really see a man really backing up another guy on the show, right? Like if
Mhm.
a guy is kind of out there crashing and burning, those guys let him crash and burn. He just kind of has to figure it out for himself.
Hey, that's him.
That's him,
That's him.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak for that person. He's a grown man, fully capable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then also it's a competition. So we
Mhm.
we we accept that we're on a dating show, but it's also a competition because I know if that man self-eliminates himself, I got a better chance of getting that girl.
Right.
What's
Right.
interesting is on the flip side is that women tend to kind of not see it in the same way, right? Like you're on a dating show, but then there's like this sisterhood that just remains intact as if
Mhm.
everything that I do is going to benefit you, but it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you all are banding together based off of maybe my comment or someone else's comment. I even see a lot of times where if someone sort of doesn't like something about one of the guys, and they all start to kind of pick on the same thing. It's like they lose attraction because they're like, okay, well, if this girl don't want him, why would I want him? It makes me look bad for wanting him, right?
Mhm.
And then again, I think it starts with kind of being accountable, right? So now you got to understand why you're in this position, why
Right.
potentially it's hard for you to have a suitor, because
Mhm.
all these decisions you're being influenced into making is going against
Mhm.
ultimately what you really want. And rather than owning that, right, and saying, okay, this I need to, be responsible for this, you kind of try to pass the blame off to someone else. And just one more note, right? And I thought it was interesting that, so the lady that I made the hair comment about,
Mhm.
I know she spoke a little bit about her reactions to the aftermath, and she cleared up some things on her
Okay.
videos. And what was interesting was she didn't feel as if the comment was actually made towards her and that it had anything to really do with her. She thought that that comment actually was a deeper conversation that had nothing to do with her. So
Mm.
on one end, it sounded like she didn't really fully support or agree with what was being said,
Mhm.
but then you also enabled it because you didn't step in and say, well, don't speak for me. I said fair enough when he mentioned that he likes longer hair. I didn't feel anything. I wasn't
Uh-huh.
disrespected, right? So as
Yeah.
men,
Yeah.
if someone tries to talk over me, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to say, no, no, that's not what I said. This is what I said.
Mhm.
This is what I mean,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Right.
But too many times we see women letting other women talk for them, and rather
Mhm.
than step up and say, no, that's not what I meant, right? They kind of have a fear of, you
Mhm.
know, it's like confrontation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just really what I thought I was, or what I have been seeing many times I'm watching the show is just, one person talks for another person, and no one's getting checked, and they just have
Yeah.
to go.
Now I will say, and just based off of this show, because she didn't. The woman that you made the hair comment about, she didn't seem like she was too offended, and then the other woman, and even other women, it was really that main woman that you had the interaction with that was really, speaking up and trying to go in on you. I will say it may have been a little tough she may have could have tried harder. It may have been a little tough to, be like, hey, bring the mic back here. That wasn't what I was trying to say. Right. So I can say it may have not been as easy to like, hey, wait, hold on. Like bring it back. I don't need her to speak for me. You know what I mean? So it may have just been easier to let it go. Right.
Sure, I can agree with that, right? Because we kind of moved a little bit further from where she was positioned. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I remember on the guy after me, right? And this is where I actually thought about that was she initially had popped her balloon on that guy because of where he lived, and he had moved his after his residency. He was getting acclimated to Phoenix, and
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
right, and she didn't see herself really living in Phoenix, so she popped prematurely. And then after she
She circled
considered it,
back.
she's like, because remember, they moved up further to the next person, like one person after
Mm-hmm.
her. And she kind of raised her hand and started talking. Was like, well, actually, so
Mm.
she was able to speak up then because the mic
Yeah.
wasn't on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right, so I'm like, you could
Yeah.
you could have did the same thing. You could have put your hand up just like you did then, and it was like, wait, I do
Mm-hmm.
got something to say. Hey, that comment, I didn't take any disrespect. You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very interesting, man, to say the least. And you talked about the sisterhood. And you just in your perspective of the sisterhood is they're gonna stick together. They could have been attracted to you or not, and they were gonna stick together. Right? That's what you believe.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And as honest as I feel that I was on the show, it's really the fact that many of the women that say that they weren't there for the sister code, they actually repeat the same behavior on each contestant to follow. I'm like, so
Mm-hmm.
are we not watching the same show? Like, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm like, can
Yeah.
we actually have an honest conversation?
Right.
You all kind of picking something about someone, and then you all sort of focus on the same thing, right? Even though
Yeah.
inside you might be attracted to that, you know,
Mhm.
you might be
But
attracted to
not
the
they're not
guy
about
that
to
has
show it on TV, on
not gonna show it
YouTube or
on
whatever.
TV.
But they're not about to show it live. Yeah, while the camera's on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but immediately as you made that comment, the balloons was popped and the walls was up. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, but I really do hope overall you said you enjoyed the experience, so I hope it was, and I hope the other contestants, or if you will, enjoyed their experience as well. I do want to my final couple of questions for you, right? And just want you to think about it. So it's kind of really a two-part question. So first question is, what is your deepest fear?
Deepest fear. I think my deepest fear is being the last member of my family to survive.
Mm.
Interesting because like me and my brother, man, we are close. Me and my cousin, like my cousin Eric, right? So we're all close. So I couldn't imagine not being here with them. So I gotta say that's probably my deepest fear.
Yeah. Okay. I can definitely, being a big family man myself, I can definitely relate to that. Okay. And final question, or the second part to that question is, what is your ultimate life goal?
Ultimate life goal is to be able to be in a position um that allows for me, my family to just be living the most optimal life. Meaning money's not an issue. We're healthy. We can see each other. Built something, a foundation for our siblings and other family members, essentially creating a generational wealth, right? In Africa, Nigeria. Yeah, because it's tough. It's tough over there.
Right.
So a lot of people who haven't been there. You need to go to Africa. If you go to Africa, you'll come back and you look at the states like, oh, this is we're spoiled.
I haven't been, but I heard it. I plan to go, and I heard it's life changing once you go.
Yeah, it's certainly life changing. I mean, even every time I go there, I don't want to leave because it's such you're in the most organic state. I mean, people truly value relationships. And honestly, I think people over there are so much more happy than here. They
Yeah,
have less,
yeah.
but are so much more happy there
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about always trying to climb up higher. It's about appreciating what you have in that moment and actually maximizing what you have, right? So it's like people there, they actually do value their health, right? They really
Mm-hmm. Right,
believe
right.
in everything in the organic state of everything from medicinal practices
Right.
to, staying active to how you speak, right? It's funny when I go there, you don't see even in the most slums of the villages, right? People who can
Mm-hmm.
dress, they still dress very formal. Like you'll see them wearing, suit pants, right? They may be not be of the best quality, right? But they try to dress very formal. You
Hmm.
don't see people sagging,
Right, right.
It's none of that. People talk very, very proper, well mannered. You know,
Yeah, just a different set of values.
it's
Right.
a different set of values, right? And they really respect people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's one of the best parts about being in Nigeria and Africa in general is just it's not superficial, it's not materialistic, and everything is very much about the people versus things.
Right, right. Well, man, I think that's a great ultimate life goal, man, and I really true hope that you achieve it. I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to converse with me this evening, man. And not only that goal, I hope you achieve all the goals that you're setting out in life, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you for having me on here, man. This is a great conversation. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you,
Giving
man.
voice to the voiceless, right, or just being able to give people the opportunity to really showcase, themselves in a positive light, right? Because we know the internet can be the wild wild west, right? I mean, again, you go back
Yeah,
to the hair comment. I would have never
yeah,
imagined something to be like a wildfire, right? Which
yeah,
in that moment it just seemed like I was talking about a preference, but apparently there was more to it. So the internet can really be a crazy place. Not a lot of times
yeah.
do people have a platform to really show who they really are. So I appreciate that. And
Hmm.
yeah, look forward to hopefully coming back on sometime in the future and having more good conversation.
No, for sure, man. And you have yourself a good evening, brother.
And shout out to my cousin's artwork in the back. I see that over there.
Yeah, so he did this one. I got a bunch more pieces, but this is actually my first published book that I wrote, and he did the cover for me, so I can't thank him enough for that, man.
Nice,
A very
congrats.
talented artist, very talented artist.
I'm gonna have to get a copy of that book, man. Support you with that. So
I much appreciated, man. Much appreciated, man. And you keep striving, man.
I appreciate you.
All right, spend no effort, brother.
Appreciate you.
All right now.